Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, September 20th, 2020, and today I'm going to be taking a look at a 2020 Senate map. Not necessarily the Senate elections, but pretty much talking about which senators have said that they will be voting and do plan to vote for a Supreme Court nomination, and comparing it to the senators who previously opposed Merrick Garland for the United States Supreme Court back in 2016. If you don't know the tricky situation about that, it's the Republican Party's reluctance to confirm President Obama's nominee after Justice Scalia passed away, I believe 11 months before the election. And now we're 44 days away, or 43 days away, actually, today. And it looks like the Republican Party will be pushing forth a nominee. And it looks like there is a very real possibility that the Supreme Court vacancy is filled before Election Day. So there are a number of things that are impacted by the Supreme Court vacancy, a number of issues with Obamacare and the future of Roe v. Wade, and a number of other issues that a lot of Democrats are worrying about. So they're trying to garner as many votes against a potential nominee as possible before the election. On your screen, you can see that there are 37 no-comment states. Essentially, these are senators who have offered their condolences to the Ginsburg family, but have also not explained whether or not they will be do plan on voting or do support a potential vote for President Trump's supposed nominee. I believe he said he'd get one out this week. We're looking around a Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe, and he did say that it would be a woman. So it looks like it might actually be Amy Barrett, but again, that's up for President Trump to decide. If you recognize her name as well, it's because she was discussed as a potential nominee back before Brett Kavanaugh was officially chosen. And I believe, you could consider her the runner-up. But, back then, Kavanaugh ended up being the pick. But there was that discussion as to whether or not Trump would be considering her for a future pick. And it looks like he is now. So on the screen, there are 13 states with senators who said that they will be supporting a potential vote. These are all Republican senators, no Democrats. And if you're looking at the 48 number on the left hand of the screen in this little donut pie chart, these are Democratic states, and also an additional state, the state of Maine. That's Susan Collins' seat. She said that she would not support a vote prior to the election. Now, I do think that she's doing that mainly in order to save face for her reelection bid. We're talking about someone who voted for Brett Kavanaugh. So, while she may be offering support for the Democrats in one way, 2 years ago, she definitely didn't. So 48 seats for the Democrats in terms of Democratic-held seats, and also one seat from Maine. The reason why I'm considering all of the Democrats as not voting for the nominee is because we can expect firm opposition to President Trump pushing through a nomination right before the election. Even Joe Manchin probably won't be voting for this nominee. It's almost guaranteed at this point, because this is not an off year. This is not a midterm election year. He's not going to run for re-election, more likely than not. So right now, I would say that he's more than likely going to vote against President Trump's nomination. He also voted to impeach him, a couple of months ago. So anyways, besides that, that puts the Democrats at 48, roughly 48, and they need 51. Why? Because Mike Pence is the current vice president. If it's a 50-50 tie, well, then the Democratic Party is in a little bit of trouble, or actually a lot of trouble, because Mike Pence would break the tie. But it is possible that they do get to 51. There are a number of notable senators who have said in the past they would not be supporting a potential nominee in 2020. Grassley from Iowa has had firm opposition to a potential nomination this election cycle. Looking at 2020, the Republican Party in general opposed Merrick Garland as a potential Supreme Court pick because it was a presidential election year. People wanted the new president, or the continued party to pick the nominee. And in 2016, it ended up being Donald Trump who won the election, and then he was able to choose his SCOTUS pick. But that was 11 months before the election, when Justice Scalia passed away. We are a month and a half away from the election, and the Republican Party is aimed at pushing through a nomination. All 37 of these no-comment states are very likely to support a President Trump nomination, because they have Republican incumbents, and they have been in full-fledged support of the president since the beginning. And there are only a couple of Republican senators that I could see possibly opposing a Supreme Court nomination. Like I said, Grassley in Iowa, Murkowski in Alaska, and Romney in Utah. Altogether, combined with Susan Collins, that would be enough to stop a vote. But it isn't likely that all four of them come together at this point. While Murkowski previously opposed it, she has been silent now. And also Grassley has been pretty silent now as well, even though both of these senators have formerly opposed a potential Supreme Court pick in 2020. So what we're going to see is the Democratic Party running a lot of hypocrisy ads this election season. Mitch McConnell's up in a competitive race. It is possible that they use this to attack him. But then again, he's still running in Kentucky. It's still very likely that he wins his election. But when we see senators like Lindsey Graham, who word for word said, use my words against me, that would be a very easy political ad for his opponent, Jamie Harrison, in that race. So it's very difficult for me to see how a lot of these Republicans can try to spin this to say, this is not what I meant, when explicitly 4 years ago, 2 years ago, they were in firm opposition to President Trump choosing a Supreme Court pick right up until the election. And there are some senators on here who previously opposed Merrick Garland being added onto the Supreme Court because it was a presidential election year that now support a replacement for RBG in the Supreme Court. So a lot of flip-flops here. There are 6 senators who do support having a vote this election as well. So again, a number of issues and a number of people that were formerly opposed to an Obama nominee that are now in support of a Trump nominee in a presidential election year. So let's take a look at the 2020 Senate elections and talk about where the states actually matter in terms of voting. So looking at this map, we have 45 Republican seats. These are states with senators who are either retiring or where the re-election bid will not be compromised by voting for a nominee meaning they probably won't be voting against it. And for the Democrats, 46 seats where voting against a nominee really won't be hurting them too much. And if you're looking at this map, you see Alabama has already been characterized as red, and no flips for the Democrats at this point, just because there are 9 seats where I could see the Democratic Party really hammering these Republicans if they do end up voting for the nominee, where the Republican Party could be in trouble in these 9 states in particular if they do end up confirming a Supreme Court justice to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Most notably, Colorado and Arizona. I mean, Martha McSally was not an elected Senate member, but she was one of the first people to say we should put forth the vote to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Cory Gardner really needs to, tread easily, very carefully. When we're looking at his reelection bid, it's almost certain that he's going to lose. But if he does want to save a little bit of face within his own constituents' minds, then he may end up opposing a potential nominee. But then again, if he knows he's on his way out, he's probably not going to. Susan Collins is also likely to try to save her reelection bid. I mean, it's the closest race of the 2020 Senate election cycle. And honestly, I do think her opposing a vote does help her. But then again, there are still a number of other issues with their track record that the Democratic Party could say, 2 years ago, you voted with the Republicans to confirm Justice Kavanaugh. Why are you changing now just because you're up for re-election? A number of issues with that. She's a competitive race. Tom Tillis has come out in full support of a President Trump nomination. He's in a very, very close race. I don't get why he's come out in support before 37 other Republican senators. That's up to him, but it's also going to probably seal his own fate. The reason why I think Lindsey Graham is really important on how he votes, which he already said that he would be, he does support getting a nomination through. It's going to be very difficult for the Republican Party to say, trust me in the future. Lindsey Graham's already in a competitive race. If people see this as a broken promise, they're going to see it easily as a broken promise. He literally said, use my words against me. And that could probably be one of the best political ads that Jamie Harrison could run across the state right before the election. Because promises are promises. And when you break one and you double down on it in 2016, 2018, and then it rolls around in 2020, and then you flip-flop 4 years later, 2 years later, that's a lot of ammunition to be used by your opponents. In Montana, I think that Steve Daines is going to be in a tricky situation. His constituents, while they did support for Trump, Trump is only up there by 7% right now, and Steve Daines is only up by 1%. So it may be a little difficult for him to cross over and vote for the Democratic Party, but it also may be, bad for his reelection bid if he is to vote for the potential nominee. Very tricky situation that Mitch McConnell really needs to worry about. And Joni Ernst has also said she will be supporting President Trump's nomination. This is a very, very close race. Super, super close. I mean, Teresa Greenfield and Joni Ernst are neck and neck at this point. I think the last poll has Teresa Greenfield up by 3%, but a number of undecided voters. Joni Ernst, while she may be doing well in this state, I think that if she does vote either way, it's going to hurt her reelection chances. So this situation is unfolding to be very negative for the GOP in general. The Democratic Party has a lot to worry about in terms of the court, but for the Senate elections, there's only a couple of races where the GOP could actually use this to their advantage. And I would say that's probably only Maine at this point. Even in Georgia, we're going to see increased black turnout, not even just in Georgia, but across the entire South. That's going to benefit the Democratic Party. And let's say David Perdue, Kelly Loeffler has already said that she will absolutely, but David Perdue, if he does end up, coming out in full-fledged support of the nomination, that could be tricky for his reelection chances. But Kelly Loeffler has already said absolutely, started off her statement saying my condolences are with, and then a whole paragraph about how she will be supporting President Trump's nomination. So this is the 2020 Senate elections map. This is where the senators currently stand. A lot of Democrats have not commented on it, but it's almost a certainty that the senators from Massachusetts will not be voting for a President Trump confirmation, especially in a presidential election year. I think the only tricky one is maybe Joe Manchin in West Virginia, but he also voted to convict President Trump. So it may not be too easy for him to side with him on this one, though he did vote for Kavanaugh in the past. But I'm going to assume at this point he will not be supporting the nomination. Unless it's almost certain that the nomination will pass, I don't think that he's going to move over party lines, because when it was Kavanaugh, it was almost certain. I mean, he just added to it. But now I will say that the Democratic Party is a little bit worse of a position to be opposing Supreme Court picks. But there's also that thing about Mark Kelley. If he is elected in 2020, he will be seated by the end of November. So if they do try to do it during the lame duck period, they're going to have one less senator to rely on, which is Martha McSally. She will be voted out, and it is likely that she does lose this Senate race. So what we see now is that there are 13 Republican senators who are supporting a potential vote, 7 of which opposed Merrick Garland back in 2016. There are 37 senators who currently have no comment as to whether or not they will be supporting it or not, but they're all Republicans. They are more likely than not going to be supporting a potential vote, especially if they aren't up for re-election this year. And then we also have 48, like I said, Democrats and do not vote, which includes just Maine for right now. That puts the Democrats at 48. They need 51, and there's 2 senators who have said in the past they would oppose it wholeheartedly. Lindsey Graham was one of these 3, which is now down to 2 because he has said that he will be supporting it. There's now down to 2. Chuck Grassley in Iowa and Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. But that only puts the Democrats at 50. They're going to need Romney or another Republican to come in and oppose Trump, assuming that both of these senators do end up opposing a President Trump nomination, which is a very large stretch. But then again, the Democratic Party very well could end up trying to court pack if they do win the Senate in 2020 and they win the presidency. And of course, the House isn't really consequential for the Supreme Court at all, but they're likely to retain the House in that scenario as well. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 Senate election videos. Again, the Senate matters more now more than ever. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.